Welcome. This is the DNX Show, where every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, we discuss domain investing topics, tips. Basically, my co-host Josh Reason and I were both domain investors for many years. It's important to, stay on top of what's going on in the domain investing arena, and we're here to try to make money. So we try to share tips and other tools that we might use that have helped us, but also any topics related in the domain space are not off limits because they all end up affecting how our investing goes. So let me say hey to my co-host. Hi, Josh. How's everything going today?
How's it going? How's it going? I'm not sure if I'm here to make money, honestly. I think I'm here to make less money and make you guys more money. I'll be quite honest. That's how it feels sometimes anyway.
Yeah. Hey, I can't help it. There's such good content on your posts, and I asked Darcy, who he can join us on stage a little bit today, because his posts, they're good topics to bring up, basically, and sometimes the most personal things, and these aren't necessarily related to any of these posts, but the most personal things are the most universal. So sometimes your feelings as a domain investor, a lot of people feel the same way, even though they might not be saying it. But I do like the posts that over the last few weeks, I haven't been able to address some of the posts you've made, Josh, and then Darcy's made quite a few that are all related to domain investing in our space, and I'm going to touch on them today. If anybody wants to look and see the topics that I plan on trying to get to, like I said, it's not necessary, it's just a guideline. Go to dnxshow.com, and matter of fact, to kick it off, that well, I mentioned it before you got in the room before we started recording today, and that was Arif brought up that a gentleman brought up that he was adjusting his pricing on Afternic, and he somehow priced everything in his portfolio at $100, which is still overpriced for most people's portfolio. But this guy sold. Oh, I sold one of my good ones, and it was sold immediately because, of course, it's worth a lot, and I priced it at 100, and somebody took it. And there's really not much recourse for that. I mean, you really need a lot of
Well,
help. Go ahead.
that's an interest. There is. That's an interest. I actually ended up reaching out to GoDaddy on behalf of him because I don't want to go too much into detail here, but there certainly is recourse, and domains certainly get clawed back. So, um, the feedback that I got is that this has happened to him a few times, maybe. I know he said it's happened a couple times, and he should probably be careful with bulk updating his portfolio going forward. But I know which domain he lost. It was indeed a very valuable domain name. Um, I I hope that there's still some possible recourse that he can have with GoDaddy. My understanding is GoDaddy is still looking into it, although they said there's nothing they can do. Um, that's about as far as my involvement goes. I don't want to get involved beyond that. I just hate to see someone lose a domain in the most obvious mispriced situation ever, right? I mean, this was a very good domain. This was a cvcv.com, obviously mispriced at $100. Apparently he changed it within a minute, a couple minutes. And yeah. So um you hate to see it. You hate to see it. It's a good lesson for everyone. It is, like Darcy said, it is a very good argument against fast transfer, but yeah, um you know, feel bad for the guy for sure.
Yeah, I wonder, can't fast transfer be, like an hour? I mean, basically, so because many times a big mistake like that, you're gonna, catch it quick, and you're gonna realize, okay, I got the notification. This was a mistake. And when I said not much, of course, if somebody wants to step in and they're important and they're over at the registrar that it happened to, they can say, and especially if it's the recipient or the buyer is at that registrar. The registrar can say this was a mistake. They do it all the time when they make mistakes, and of course there's clawbacks. We went into it before, but we're in the process of some legal issues with some registrars because they claw back things and they think they can claw them back at any time. Believe it or not, there's no time frame that's off limits if they really believe it. That's why, fortunately, in this case, I don't know the details, but maybe the guy didn't, the buyer didn't immediately transfer out. I'm thinking, well, we wanted to talk about it a bit on, so,
Hey, can you
how do
guys
you
hear
make
me?
this mistake? Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, we can hear you, Mike.
So you know, after Nick, fast transfer was a phenomenal advancement when it came out, I don't know, over a decade ago, in that it is immediate. It can be immediate transfer of a domain between registrars. And for people that want to take ownership of the domain name, that's a fantastic advantage. So typically, if you make a mistake, and I don't know anything about the details of this, I don't know the domain investor, I don't know anything, but typically if you make a mistake and you price your domain incorrectly and it sells via fast transfer and it goes from one registrar to another, let's say from GoDaddy to Dynadot, GoDaddy can reach out to Dynadot and say, hey, this was a mistake, would you mind reversing it, and can we like do something to get the domain back? And
Mm.
oftentimes, if the both registrars are in the United States, then they will, agree to do something like that. But if the registrar is out of the country, and if the registrar is in a country that, maybe isn't friendly with the United States, um, they can play hardball, and there is no recourse, because you can't go to another country that doesn't play well with the United States and say, hey, we want this domain back, because they legally, transferred it. They legally
Mm.
have it at their registrar, and they legally made, the new buyer legally made a purchase. It was
Mm.
a mistake. It's an unfortunate mistake. So in some cases, to Josh's point, you can get it back through negotiations and goodwill. And in some cases, when it leaves the country and goes to another registrar in another country, you have no recourse, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's correct. In this case, the domain is still at GoDaddy for him, which is why I'm hopeful that he might be able to, uh, come to an agreement to get it
Yeah.
back. But um, you know, that's gonna be down to him and GoDaddy.
Yeah.
I'm really confused at what gets it clawed back, because like, do you have to threaten a lawsuit? Because I've been on both ends of it, where I had a domain like taken on a pricing mistake. It wasn't like a crazy domain that was worth a lot, but I was going to build it out. And then I've had one clawed from my account that I bought
Yeah.
fast transfer like 2 weeks later.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I had one clawed back this week after having it in my account for over a week. Um, I think that we're all confused about what I don't think there's a consistent. Um, I don't think there's much consistency there.
Yeah. There are no set rules, because it's like every situation is slightly different. So they tackle it one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, imagine getting it clawed back 30 or 60 days later, and you've, actually really done work, not just bullshit. You've really entered into a partnership with somebody else, or you've acquired other names around the name that you bought. And maybe you spent five figures, if more or more, on the name. So it wasn't
Mhm.
a small purchase. You arranged to, the finances to get it. And then when you got it, it was in your account. You start building on it. Some people, of course,
It,
never build. They buy a name and it's a big company and no one builds for years.
it's a it's
Sometimes,
a it's a nuanced situation though, like Mike says, right? I mean, like I've bought names for five figures and had them clawed back, right? Names that I really really wanted, and have names that four figures and names in three figures. Like, it's happened to me quite a few times, and I understand you've got lawsuits going on right now regarding that. But to Mike's point, I do think that it's a very nuanced situation. So if a guy that has a history of saying, "Oh, that was a mistake," blah blah blah, once, twice, three times, I think at that point, you know, GoDaddy has every right to just say, you know what, you've made this mistake once, you've made it twice. We're not going to help you again. There's a pattern happening here, but maybe it's an exact same situation, but it's the seller's first time making a mistake. I think that that's slightly different. So that's just one nuance of many, many, many different scenarios that probably makes it inconsistent, like I said.
Yeah. Well, Josh, you're right. There's so many different facts. Hold on, Mike. I wanted to say so many different facts that it truly can be. What if you're a great client to a registrar, and then you somehow you've made a mistake and didn't renew your name, and then they want to help you out, even though it was your mistake, or it could be a registrar mistake. Somebody didn't send a notice, but there's just so many small little facts, and then you see what happened, how long before they tried to correct it, but also all the different communications behind the scenes. Because, right, sometimes they're like, listen, we're just trying to, somebody made a mistake. It was an accident. We're going to try to correct it. And then sometimes you think, well, and once we see behind the curtain, there was more to it than that. So, I mean, but definitely with, every little fact matters, and timing too. Go ahead, Mike, and then we'll go to Arif.
I was just going to ask Josh if he's ever thought about transferring a domain name from one registrar to another as soon as possible after getting it in the account, in your GoDaddy account, let's say, like moving it to Dynadot. So at least you have one layer of some negotiation that needs to happen. And if you have goodwill at Dynadot or Unstoppable or wherever you move it to, then at least it can't be clawed back.
Yeah, the issue with that is the 60-day transfer lock that they immediately post on the domain. I will say this, that on the name that they last called back from me, they called me beforehand, and I wasn't quite clear whether they were saying they were going to take it regardless, but I essentially said, like, listen, if it's going to make your lives easier, and it was truly a mistake, it's not going to change my life. It's a frustrating one, but at some point, like for me personally, I can't be dealing with the hassle, and I prefer everyone's life be a little easier. But I would say that is an exception. I think most people, when they buy a name, they expect to keep the name. It's just that I've been around the block a few too many times.
Yeah, Arif, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys already said, I was going to say, like 4 points to make. What Mike said is really important. The different countries obviously makes it complicated, but I think the problem is that most people see it from the outside as being like, okay, they'll find a way to make it work for good clients and not the other way around, which is not entirely true, right? I mean, there are, as you said, like I didn't know that the person had multiple times this happened, right? My understanding was that it happened within a few minutes, and he contacted his rep right away, right? Like to me, if you contact them right away for a mistake that obvious, there should be some way to block it. But again, time is an important factor. If you wait a few days, don't expect to really have those solutions there, because again, it's not fair to the other side. But you guys covered the rest of it, so good job, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an easy topic at all. So
yeah, I mean, I was thinking,
yeah,
Josh,
it sucks getting stuff clawed back. I've in the past, like it wasn't Aftermarket stuff. I remember at one point, even before I was a domainer, I bought like 20 .news, right? And they were like all super premium, like American news, world news, music news, like the top of top you could think of, right? And looking back, I know what happened was that the database that list that connects the premium pricing to GoDaddy's sort of registration system was disconnected. So I saw the regular prices for all these what should have been premium names, and they clawed them back like days later, right? So here I was planning this before I was a domainer. I bought them like, okay, I'm going to build them out. I had a friend. I called my friend. Okay, we're going to do this and that and da-da-da. The next thing you know, like 3 days, I can't remember if it was 3 days later or 2.5 days later or 4 days later, but in that range, all of a sudden, oh, we're sorry, we can't sell you these domains, right?
I'll be honest. I don't actually think they give too much. They give too much unfair preference compared to what people may think. I mean, I'm a pretty strong GoDaddy client. I do a lot of business with them, and like I said, they've clawed back names from me. I mean, I don't feel like I necessarily get any preferential treatment in that area. And I wouldn't necessarily want to either. I do, and this is why I brought up the James thing. I do think that, in one-off scenarios, everyone deserves to be treated the same way. And I think that GoDaddy do that.
Yeah, I agree. That's why before I said like the perception is that, right? I think a lot of people think GoDaddy is a lot more evil than they really are. They're good people. Sometimes yes, the platform is a mess, but it's more because it's a big ship to steer. And it's not that easy to make things better, right? My expectation is it should be better than it is, but it's not because people are trying to be deceptive or evil or whatever it is. Most people at GoDaddy are really good people. We want the product to be better. And again, as you said, I think it might also be just a question of who you talk to, right? Some people just know more things than other people. Like you can go to one rep and they'll be more helpful in one situation, and a different rep will be more helpful in a different situation. And it's just with a big platform like that, that's what's going to happen. Some people have specialties, some people have knowledge. A few weeks ago, I had a big situation with the transfer stuff, and my service was it was on the weekend, and the service was horrible. Like I know if my rep it was Monday to Friday during the day, my rep would have had it done within 10 minutes, right? A couple of emails, upper level, it would have been done. But here I was on the weekend, and like days later, these transfers weren't going on, and they were blaming me, saying I was wrong and this and that. Like I was basically spending tons of time on the phone training their reps.
Yeah.
So it's really a question
hold
of
on
who
there.
you get
Your rep
as
wasn't
luck.
going to
And
fix this. Was an error that was going on through it system wide. So your rep might have been
different
able to
thing.
have been
I
smart
agree.
enough
Yeah.
to know, hey, you are right, Arif. You
Yeah.
can transfer after they're expired, but we're all trying to work this out. But they actually got that
Yeah.
fixed on Monday. I
Yeah,
will say,
but
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say my point was that you have different levels of service and different people you talk to in a big company like that, and you won't always get the same answer, right? And it's not because they're trying to deceive you. It's just because that's what happens in big companies. Certain people have certain specific experiences versus other ones, and you make one phone call, you get one answer. You get the next phone call, you get a different answer, and it's not because they're trying to deceive you, whatever it is. It's just because that's how big companies work. It's not just GoDaddy; it's all big companies, right? Call your phone provider with a problem, and you'll get two different reps, and you'll get two different answers. It's just that's what
Call
happens.
Kookaroo Chicken in Tennessee, and they don't even have those anymore. All right, Josh, I wanted to ask, and I'm glad Mike's here too, because he started this notify.domains, and I want to talk about this CVCV that, okay, the guy made a mistake. And first I wanted to ask you, Josh, tell us how this guy made the mistake, if not just him, but how someone can, change prices in bulk. And more importantly, so how we can avoid this mistake as investors. But the more important part of the question I have is, so how do people get notified, when, so somebody was notified, probably the CVCV, they probably didn't just happen to check it right then. So let's talk about the notification afterwards. And then Mike can tell us if his service does that too.
The person who bought it was either monitoring it or got extremely lucky and checked it in the exact moment, which wouldn't necessarily be that crazy because, like I said, it was a good domain. It probably gets a lot of searches. But most likely he was monitoring the name and got notified. He's probably using notify.domains after it got released, honestly, so we can all blame Mike. But the how you can avoid this, honestly, if you really want to avoid it, the best thing you can do is, if you have a rep, particularly if you have a rep, tell them to make the adjustments. Send them an Excel spreadsheet with all your prices and say, you make the adjustments in my Afternic account. And that way, if they mess it up, they will get the name back. And you'll typically be in the clear. And I know that because I've had a name clawed back before where it was the rep that made the mistake on pricing the name. So I think that would be the preference if you have an Afternic rep. On the other hand, I think this guy made the mistake by updating the wrong. So what he actually what he did is he selected his entire portfolio when he thought he was just selecting a page. When you do a bulk update, you select what you think is a page, but it can you can also select all, so select the entire portfolio. So he selected the entire portfolio when he thought he was only selecting 25 names. So yeah, I mean, listen, just if you've got, the harsh reality is that these domains for most of us are expensive. If you've got high value names, be very careful about how you're pricing your domains. Check them frequently. Make sure you have two-factor authentication on your account, And if you're opted into fast transfer, be doubly cautious, because you know that if it sells, it's gone.
Mike, could I track all CVCV at notify.domains? I mean, what's, basically, can I track every 4 letter that has, AI in it at the end? I mean, can we do things like that at notify.domains?
You can, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. So, it's $2 per month on a yearly basis to track any domain name that you want and be notified faster than most other people. Now, if there's somebody that is running a script on their computer that it pings GoDaddy via their API every 1 minute for some small list of cvcv.com domain names, then they're going to get notified faster. We
Yeah.
check everything regarding a domain name. We're built for end users who always wanted that one domain name. That I want to own ryan.com for my family and my kids for lifetime, and I want to monitor it until it becomes available. Or this company just bought it and got funded. I know in a couple of years they're probably going to go out of business, and I would like to monitor it to see when the site goes dark. Or I want to see if it is accidentally listed at GoDaddy or Cedo or Spaceship for an unreasonably low price for what it's worth, and then I want to buy it. Or it expires. I need to watch all the auction houses to see which one it goes to, if it gets picked up by Dropcatch or GNAME or what have you, and then where to go to bid on it. So that's what notified.domains is built for. We're not built for like follow every one of the CVCV or 3letter.coms or things like that. We could do it, but it would cost you a lot of money.
Well, thanks for that. Oh, I have interesting specific clients now working with Jeff who say we are interested in this one name if there's any changes in it. So now that sounds perfect for, it's an end user looking for a specific name, really believes that it's, they have potential that it's probably going to become available at some point. But okay, so that makes sense. Not
Yeah,
somebody
that's
could
the exact
yeah.
customer profile that I'm building it for. Exactly.
Interesting. Josh, at DNX, there's a lot of, basically when there's changes to DNS records or there's changes in pricing, how are people notified? How is a client notified? And then how is it basically notified on the website at DNX? So if I'm watching, like I said, I'm about ready to change the price on SXAI in, Essex. You love Essex. You're from over there. You probably cruise through and cause problems in Essex, wherever the hell it is. But anyway, and also SX.
That's so far away. That's
sound-
so far away from Essex, dude. Essex is ESXEX.
I know what I'm talking about. The fuck it is. But also SX is sex without the E. But anyway, so I was going to change if I change the price for you bought RXAI, I don't give a fuck if that's prescription.
I did buy RXAI.com.
You
You're
spent
right.
like $8,000 on that, didn't you?
Oh my God, man! You need to get off my back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going
That's
to
a little
change.
bit TMI. Yeah, he's
Well, he
better
said
watch out
it
what
on
kinds
here.
of things you share with him.
He said it on here. He said it on this show. He was talking about basically changes of pricing for these names, and so if I change the price of SXAI from 5 figures down to 4 figures, how does that show on DNX? And can you?
Yeah, you're gonna get notified very quickly, within an hour. Yeah, we've talked about this for several months now. We're probably going to have tiers eventually with monitoring, so that if you want to get notified within a minute or a couple minutes, it's probably going to have to be a paid a subscription of some sort with a number of names. But yeah, with our free monitoring, you get notified within an hour on marketplace changes. So yeah, I mean, honestly, to be honest, Darcy and some other people in here probably use the monitoring tool more than I do. Darcy's constantly asking for I don't know what, thinking that he owns the tool, so he probably knows more about it than me.
Actually, I don't really use it, to be honest with you. I should.
Why you keep asking for all these freaking requests then if you don't use it?
Well, that's the problem, is that if you can't put a price and you put a bunch of names in there, you just get spammed like crazy if they update by like $1 and stuff like that.
I thought we did that. I thought we put a price.
I think you did a percentage of when you monitor, like you can like when you add it to your list, you could put a percentage, I think.
A percentage if it goes down a certain percent of the current price.
Yeah, which is great if you add bulk names, I guess. But if you're doing individual names, you'd probably want a little more customization.
Like what? You want to customize, say, like when it reaches this point, notify me. But if it doesn't reach that point, yeah, but that makes no sense, because what if it reaches like $10 more than that and you miss out on it because I don't
Well,
know,
then you
man.
should have put $10 more.
I would much prefer to get, if I'm you, I much prefer to get one email if the price updates, and if that means that if I get an email every day, but I'm getting the best opportunity to buy the name, then that's great.
Is there a maximum amount of domains you can monitor right now?
We talked about having a max of 100. I'm not even sure if that's in place. I think it is.
It's 100 right now at your site.
Okay.
Darcy
Yeah,
does
it's
strike
100.
me as the kind, he's like, if you're going to throw a barbecue, you got to have all this, and this, and you need to have deviled eggs and this. And then he comes and he's
you
like,
gotta do it
I'm not
right.
even hungry, really. And no, I can't have deviled eggs
Fucking
anyway. They
guy.
hurt my stomach.
This fucking guy, honestly, is the last time I give Raising Fire promo.
Well, why he's here, because we might end up kicking him out. Okay, so Darcy, I'm going to go to the end of the outline. There's some things I wanted to, Josh was nice about GoDaddy clawing back stuff, but he was upset about some aftermarket auctions that he said were an absolute disaster. We're going to get to that, Josh, but while we have Darcy here, Darcy was saying, if you look at numbers 13, 14, and 15 on our outline on DNXShow.com, these were posts that Darcy made in the past week. Well, I'll just go in order. The first one, entities in the domain space building the same products. He didn't really want to say who was building what, but who are you talking about? Not Mike with notify.domains, were you? Who are you talking about? And what type of products?
I'm not gonna be specific, but I just feel like everyone is building a worse version of expired domains. That's about as easy as I can put it.
Are you bucketing DNX into that, Darcy?
No, because you're taking a bunch of different aftermarket services and consolidating them onto DNX, where expired domain doesn't have that coverage. But
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's doing these. Oh, you can sort the drop list like this, but all these filters already exist on.
Yeah, we
expired
know.
domains.
We know who you're talking about. It's not rocket science.
Hey, it's not one person. There's like 10 of them.
I know. Well, I mean, but I mean, I think I made a post about that they just like there's a constant kind of rotation of these kind of products that come and
I think
go.
you've been
But they're
hinting at it as well.
but they're very, very hard to monetize. They seem attractive, but they're very, very hard to monetize. So, particularly the auction stuff, which is what most people are doing, right?
Well, somebody was talking.
Yeah, I
so,
mean,
go ahead.
like
sorry, go ahead, Mike.
a year and a half, 2 years ago, everybody was building marketplace landers, right? And like now, where are all those landers? I guess they're still operating. Some of them aren't operating. It's nice to see DNX is still building their landers and building out the entire suite of tools that people need to manage their domain names and in correspondence with people. And so, I think that's the downside of this vibe coding, that everybody thinks they can build something until they realize that they don't have proper security, they got hacked, they don't really understand how to tie it into subscription payments properly. They don't want to provide customer service. They actually don't want to do all of the bug fixes that everybody seems to find whenever they announce something cool that they've built. The list goes on and on. And I think it's just the learning curve, right? Just like we had a learning curve when we entered the domain name industry, like, oh, I'm going to buy all these domain names. I'm the smartest person ever. I can't believe nobody hand registered these domains yet. We got the same thing going on with coding. And at some point, I think we'll mature past this point, and then the people who really want to build a business will be left. But it's going to take probably another year, maybe two, and for people to realize that. What do you guys think?
I mean, I have a lot of respect for all of these people that are building, regardless of whether they're successful or not successful. admirable in my opinion, and you're going to learn a lot regardless of whether you fail or whether you succeed. So you know, I don't have a problem with it. Like Domain 360, you remember that? That was a great product. Like when he was saying, oh, he was thinking about selling it or whatnot, I said to him like I'd be interested in buying it, but I guess he'd rather shut it down than take some money for what he built. I guess he spent a long time building it, and you could tell because it was a good product. And this was kind of before the vibe coding really like got started, so he probably invested a lot of time and his own money into it. But yeah, I mean, he's I think he's going to take another stab at the cherry, but they're just hard, they're just very very hard to monetize. And one of the reasons why, like Darcy said, is that expired domains is incredible and does everything that you want it to do. And DNX is also very very good, and we have good coverage, and honestly you don't really need too much more than that, and and all of our money goes into investing in making it better and continuing to build that suite of tools. So you can build similar types of things, but you're going to have to differentiate yourself in an extremely meaningful way if it's going to be worth your while.
There was a
One
company.
of my
Yeah, you got.
follow-ups
You
to that.
got oh,
One
as
of
I
my
was gonna say,
follow-ups
like
to that.
that's the key thing, right? Like for me, you guys know, build out is build out. It's very different from domain investing, but and again, also what Mike said is very true, right? There's even if it's easier today than it was in the past, it's still not as easy as people think. But on the flip side, I think anybody who's interested in domain investing should always build at least one site. The first thing you do, make it something either you're very knowledgeable about, or something you're passionate about, or even better, something that involves both, right? So that you don't sort of let it slide and whatever it is. If it's something you love, then you'll continue to work on it. And that experience of building something, even if it doesn't work out in the end, will still give you a much better perspective of the people who are buying from you just your domains in the future. I just think, like, if you want to get into domain investing, you should build at least one thing once at least.
Yeah, to follow on that, what I was also saying is that everyone's going through these auctions and they're seeing some of the best names to build on, and then instead of building on those, they choose to build a product that exists. It just doesn't make sense to me.
On a bad domain.
Damn.
Okay, well, what you say means something, I guess. Hey, Arif, so when I originally built ABC Productions, 1998, 99, I built a site that just said, I'm a production company, and here's links to, basically I put a bunch of links on the page that helped me. It's like my favorite places, Daily Variety or Deadline, basically. So very easy to build pages, and people do that with like their business cards. Then eventually I put, hey, here's a link to this song that's on my movie or so on. But I guess the point is, it is true. Build a business card, build a page with your favorite links just for yourself. And then it's like all your favorite places. It may be, in a certain niche, but the point is, websites are, fun and easy to build. I was saying, like with DNX Show, I was glad to, I wanted to, I like that you can build an HTML page that is, you don't need a bunch of other files, CSS files, a bunch of style. Basically, in basic code, you can just set up a page, then import, or anyway, add a form like we do for our outline. But really, it's important just to us as domain investors and owning a bunch of domains, there's several names in your portfolio that should have pages built on them. Okay, I wanted to go on to another topic. What was it? It was something about Darcy said he was so many things I want to cover today. But Darcy was talking about he was doing some outbound and some cold. It was, what did you say, Darcy? It was basically cold email has been a giant fail so
Yeah.
far for Raising Fi. What were you doing there with the cold emails? What were you trying to find customers or find companies, or tell us about that?
Oh, so just I think Raising Fi it's got great filters for domainers to see what's being built on. But I think the main customer is people in VC or salespeople who are looking for contacts of people with like fresh money. So all I was doing was using Instantly and cold emailing like people in sales to pitch the product about how it could be useful for them to get clients who are ready to spend money. And yeah, just cold email's been a giant fail. There's not much else to say. I mean, raising FI hasn't been a fail, but getting customers through cold email has been.
And
Yeah,
finally,
I
why?
mean,
Go ahead, Josh.
you have to, you have to. I mean, it brings up a good point. Also, is like, well, you take shots on goal, and when it becomes apparent that that is a bad shot and it fails, like Darcy said, it was a giant fail, then you move on to the next, and you just start working on what works, and quickly leave the stuff that doesn't. But that's why it's just build, 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 and that takes time. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're not going to get it right in the first 6 months. You're not going to get it right in the first year. It's going to take time to iterate on the product, and like that takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of investment. So, yeah, just that's what I mean by you're going to learn a lot regardless. So I do agree. I think that if you can, and it's cool, right? I mean, this is one of the benefits of vibe coding. Anyone can go out and start building and start learning about what it takes to develop a product and then sell it, and you know go from there. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and you can learn from it.
Yeah, I wanted to prepare a couple guys, Arif and Renee. I see Renee's in the crowd. So these guys have went, and I'm just preparing you because I'm going to touch on a couple other topics, then I'm going to come back to this. So be ready because I've given a lot of thought to this. It's basically money
I'm
being
ready.
spent. So Arif's went from 1,000 names to 5,000 names in the last few years. Renee's up to 10,000 names, he said, and I was listening to him the other day, and that's what I want to speak on is the expense, the cost of increasing your portfolio. And, because we always talk about, I got this sale and that sale, but I like to break down the numbers of, geez, so this much money was spent over the last couple years. And, it doesn't need to be, recovered immediately, but it is money that was spent there. So I'm going to get to the expense of building portfolios, and it's not, to be taken lightly. It's one of the most, I think the most important part of domain investing is your expenses. Okay, before we get to it though, Josh, I wanted to ask you about that issue you had with that marketplace. Basically, I think people hit on it. Maybe it was named Jet, but the point is, it's just basically you're changing a credit card, or you haven't bought something there in a while, and they ask for a lot of the same information when they know it's you. But tell us about
They
that
already have
frustration
it.
and what you experienced.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got it sorted today. Someone helped me out, but the essential issue is, and most people that have been in the space for a while will know this if they've ever had to switch switch credit cards on Snap names or NameJet, is that card expires, and you want to switch to a different credit card, or you simply just want to switch to another credit card because maybe you get more points on it, or it's got a higher credit limit, or what have you. As soon as you can only have one payment method on there, so you can't have multiple. And then if you switch, it completely sets your account back to square one, and you need to send in driver's license and verification and all that kind of thing again, which doesn't make an awful lot of sense, does it?
It's frustrating, all the KYC bullshit for domain investing. I wanted to say quickly, expireddomains.com. Remember that person was like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to compete with expired domains. Not it. They got a website set up there. No one goes to it anymore. The person's not around. I mean, they were promoting before they launched it. But I just think it's interesting. People, we got this great name, and, it's a service, expired names, domains in this space. Everybody uses the, .net. And, they thought they were going to make some headway because they had the exact name in the .com, and we're going to get some traffic from that. And plus, our service is just as good. Is it? I don't know. I mean, it's, the site looks live, but I can't even recall the person who was, it seemed like, remember they picked it up for quite a bit. All right.
Wasn't it like 50,000 or something?
Yeah, right. And they said for sure, yeah, this thing's going to happen. Bottom line is the distribution. And I mean, it's tough to attract business. Okay. So Arif, Renee, if you're available, and boy, that's risky to ask Renee to come up here. He could just start talking. Okay, so between Arif and Renee, you may not hear from me anymore the rest of the show. Okay, but I wanted to
Come on, Renee.
okay, so Arif, I was thinking about, first of all, I was listening to Renee, and he said he's at 10,000 names now, and I've been doing just the opposite. So I went from 6,000 names down to 1,000, down to right under 1,000. So a lot of us are doing, different things. Some of you've built Arif from 1,000 names up to 5,000. Am I pretty close there? You went from maybe 1,500 or 1,000 to about
No,
5.
so I started about 9 years ago, and like from 2017, 18, 19 into mid 2020, I grown from almost nothing to 3,000. And then for a while, I didn't buy anything. For a couple of years, I was just on cruise control. Just wasn't in the flow of buying stuff. And then I think 2023, 2024, I had maybe two stints, one of a couple months, one of like 4 months where I combined for almost 1,000. And then last year from mid-May to mid-September, I acquired 1,100. But don't forget, like for me, I'm last year was a little bit of an exception. I was paying a little bit more for a small percentage of the domains. Still, I'd say 90% were still my really much cheaper than most people. But prior to that, like my first 4,000 domains, like 95% closeouts, right? And of the last 5%, like at one point I bought 100 hand regs, but there were hand regs of stuff that I kind of let go. I didn't get a closeout like the year before. I was like, oh, there's a special. I think it was an Epic was doing like the $5 thing or something like that way back in the days. But yeah, so like for me, it's not the same thing as other people who are putting like heavy like deposits up front. Like for me, it's just no. $5, $11. It's basically almost a rounding error when I look at the long term thing of things, right? So that cost is absorbed almost the first year. Because I said like I'm not going to get too specific with my numbers, but the last many years I pretty much double my costs, right? And this year is probably going to be a little bit more. I had another 10K sale earlier on this week, and I've already paid for my renewals. If not, it's within a couple of $1,000 over or under whatever it is. And we're in April type of thing. And I just said no to an offer of $11,000 for another domain. That's what's changed for me in the last year or two. Like last year, my average sales price was significantly higher, and this year again, it's gone up another notch. But last year, my sell-through rate went down a touch. Like the overall, like my revenue was consistent. It was like double what my costs were, right? And so as I grow my portfolio, the double that number becomes a bigger like dollar value, right? That's what I want to do eventually. But don't forget, in theory, I'm still part-time, right? I do have another job. I'm looking to retire kind of early-ish. I think next year I'm taking a sabbatical, and then the year after that I can qualify for a quote-unquote pre-retirement. So I'll be working only 2 days a week if I choose to do that for 3 years after that, and then I retire with all my stuff. So, it's domains it's a great sideline for me. I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. I'm doing well at it. I'm not at the level where I'm like doing it full time and really going full. Like Renee, I heard him talk the other day. It's impressive, right? Like he's really, juiced up his portfolio size. For me, it's slow and steady, and I have money in my PayPal from sales. Oh, okay, I'll go check out GoDaddy auctions. The next thing you know, I'm in it like for 2 months, then buying this and that and that and that. Right now, I have enough money in my PayPal to go on a shopping spree for like 3 months of buying, 5 to 10 domains a day. So it's kind of fun. What sort of the exact things you were looking to ask about?
I have no fucking idea now. I've lost my train of everything. Hey, no, it's like, that saying, ask somebody, I didn't even ask you, but you ask them what time it is, and they go, well, the watch really works this way. Hey, we're going to get to Renee, but we got plenty of time. Well, actually not. We only have just over an hour. So for you two, that's not nearly enough. Renee, I want to say hi to you first before we start talking about it. What's up, Renee? What's happening?
Well, not much. Just bidding on auctions as we speak and training my AI model to be my second set of eyes, and a lot of learning curves. Somebody once told me the best way to, prove that you're understanding a concept is to teach somebody else. And having to teach an AI model, which basically is teaching somebody from scratch, it actually makes you a little bit more refined, sharper, disciplined, and just more structured. So it's actually been kind of a blessing in disguise. It's been a good break from buying names. I've bounced back and forth, but there's some growing pains. There's some things I need to learn more on the technical side, like getting API access, pulling in the data. I'm learning what MPC or MCPs are now, and like pulling that in from Unstoppable and other places that I'm gathering data. Dynadot's working on theirs right now. I'm working with them to, when it's fully launched, to get access to that, and just stuff like that, just to make my life easier, so that I just wake up, run the scripts, and then I have to just basically look at the names. It'll take me 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll go bid on them. And then my day's an hour instead of right now it's 4 or 5 hours, and then do something else throughout that time. So
So you're around 10,000 names now. You said, correct?
a little over 10,000, yeah. And actually, it's ironic that Josh was talking about the spreadsheet thing, because I just crossed a little over 10,000 this last week, and they've had an issue with the last 7 days at Aftermarket where you can't bulk update anything over 50 names, and it just errors out on you, whether it's price or lander. So I had to learn how to use a spreadsheet anyway, because when you have over 10,000 names, you can't bulk update at all, and like over the whole portfolio one shot. So you have to learn how to use the Excel spreadsheet, and it's quick, it's efficient, and actually I find myself being more careful because I'm having to double check and triple check, and then I upload them, and it's pretty fast. And then I have a rep that will put them in for me too if I want. Uh, but yeah, that's one of the interesting things is that it actually slows you down a little bit, makes you because again, that I hate that. And I was talking to someone this morning about on Spaceship and other places where you click the default little box and it says select them all, and then you have to click off that to do the 500 or 1,000 or whatever you're doing. And that to me is one of my biggest pet peeves, because it's scary. You can be in a rush and just doing things, and then I did it once on Spaceship where I clicked the box and thought I was doing 1,000. I did all of them, and it took 15 minutes to upload everything. I was like, oh my god, please, nobody nobody see anything. And then I was like raced against time. The second it was done uploading, I deleted the whole portfolio and then uploaded them again. So I definitely could sympathize, and nothing happened when it's unfortunate. But yeah, so it's very scary kind of. And then one thing you can do, which I don't know. I mean, some people say you could disable fast transfer and not opt in, which I guess is a good answer, and I'm not against that. But I think it depends on the quality of name, and that makes sense for some names. But if it's your bread and butter, 3 to 5K names, and I think it's okay to just always be on fast transfer. I say when you get to maybe 10K plus, then think twice about it. In my opinion.
The thing with fast transfer is it gets you more eyeballs, right? There's more partner registrars that are only fast transfer than otherwise. Mind you, the
I
most
don't
of the
know.
volume
I
from
don't know.
Aftermarket.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is anymore.
I disagree with that
Well,
100% too. That argument just is dead, because I see where all my sales come from, and 85% of my sales are through GoDaddy RegPath anyway. And I'm not the same as everybody else, but that whole extra exposure, like the standard network's
Yeah,
like 100 partner networks. I mean, how many more do you need than that, in my opinion?
and the rest of
so
yeah, exactly. 85% or whatever goes through GoDaddy for you, and the rest of them are like
yeah,
Namekeep, like Cloudflare, where fast transfer like doesn't matter anyway.
so I don't know if Mike's there, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the old Sherpas, or it might have been a Dominion Wire, but I'm pretty sure there was a GoDaddy exec, might have been Paul, might have been Joe, I don't know. But again, years ago, so things have
Yeah.
changed. But
Yeah,
saying that
you're not wrong, RF. They used to
yeah,
have the website say that it gets some significant amount more of
it was at least
distribution.
double. Yeah,
And I tend now to agree with Josh and Darcy that like the biggest platforms that get the most exposure are the GoDaddy, Dynadot, not Namecheap anymore, but and then it drops off pretty quickly. And so I I'm not convinced that fast transfer is going to get you the exposure that will drive more sales for your portfolio. Yeah, it maybe
yeah,
gets you more exposure elsewhere in the world, but like most of the people that are buying our domain names are coming from United States and
yeah.
other
Yeah,
countries.
it might be that maybe it was like double, but I always thought it was the actual searches. but it might be just double the registrars, right? But then knowing that some of those, registrars are like, super, super tiny compared to GoDaddy. Like, I mean, for me, I'm guessing most of my domains sell at GoDaddy, but again, no, I don't really check all that often. But, again, it is one of those factors. But, mind you, if you're like, again, like Renee or myself or somebody else who, we check our emails, a couple of times a day, at least the email account where there's sales. Like, I mean, I, I'll get a congratulations email from a domain that says spaceship, and the domain is at GoDaddy within the hour, right? It's like the whole thing after congratulations, I went to spaceship, entered the thing, the transfer went, and like sometimes even less than that. Usually it's just like, okay, I didn't get off the couch right away. But if you're not a fast transfer, it's not a question of speed. It's just a question of visibility. But as you guys said, like I don't believe the numbers are what they were before. I just don't know if it's a minimal amount either.
Well, I would just challenge you. I don't think spaceships in fast transfer networks, so that's not really. Maybe you meant to say a different registrar, but
No, no, no,
that's
no, no, no. What's what I meant is that like it's not like Namecheap and Spaceship are no longer part of fast transfer. I'm saying like if you're looking for speed, fast transfer is not an issue. If you're on your portfolio, you're checking your email like regularly, or you see ping come up, and you see congratulations. You just go to your Spaceship, you unlock it, you enter the transfer code at Afternic, and within 20 minutes, the domain is at an Afternic, and then usually if it's during the week, well, at some point at that night, you'll get the email saying, okay, your payment's being, I forget what the term is saying.
Yeah, listen. If you have
Yeah.
here's the truth. If you have your name registered at Spaceship, let's say, and have your names on Afternic and Seller Hub, you have 99% of the coverage that you need. Probably 99.9.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, especially if you're dealing with an English language portfolio, right? Like if you have other foreign words or whatever it is, it might be a little bit different. But if it's English, yeah, I agree with you.
And
Can
people are
I
using.
ask you chime in about something earlier, Todd? You're talking about with the whole like people building similar tools, and I think something that I didn't hear mentioned, and is that I think that everybody that's building these tools, I have a lot of respect for them, and I've tried to build my own landers, and I did it before, and it was a good experience. I learned a lot, but I think at some point there's a friction when you realize it costs money, tokens like there's a cost, right? Obviously, and it's when you scale it, it can be expensive quickly, especially at the beginning. And if you don't have people paying for your service, you're putting the bill yourself, right? So I think that's where people start doing it and they think, oh, this is great. And then all of a sudden, when you start thinking about, I think costs will come down as time evolves and AI and inference happens and stuff like that. But for now, I mean, some of this stuff is like, I'm even using Claude now, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go up to a higher plan, because of the amount of information I'm putting into it. But for me, it's worth it. But I think some people, it's super expensive, and
You think costs will go down? Is that the general take? I'm not. I have because I haven't looked into this much. I would challenge that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as things become commoditized with the whole token ecosystem, right? I mean, at this point, once you can have inference and everybody gets more and more chips and data centers get built out, right, the cost will come down. It's only so expensive now because there's a limited supply of compute power, and I think as it gets built out in this country, and there's data centers being built every single day, and it's going to take a long time, but I think the cost will come down in the next few years. It's not a short term thing.
You
Um,
you can also argue though that they're lowering the cost right now for growth, right, to get users.
That's my take. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
There's
bleeding money like
arguments for
crazy.
both
I
sides.
guess it could be both sides, yeah, depending on like if it's enterprise or if it's personal or like recreational use. So yeah, I can see both sides. That's actually an interesting point. I have to think more about it, but um,
Yeah. When it comes to domain tools, like I'm pretty jaded. Like I started at Name Pros maybe almost 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago in that range, whatever it is, and like every single month, there's somebody who's starting a domain project, right? They either marketplace or auction thing and blah blah blah. And you know what? Sometimes they get pretty far and they build something nice, but what they all lack is the marketing and the critical mass. The critical mass is so much more important than having something that's like pretty and working and all the buttons. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's important too. But I mean, the people who will take things to the level of like Josh did with DNWE or DNX, it's like it's not even 1%, right? There's so many people who start with these intentions, and yeah, AI makes it easier nowadays. But AI is good for like simple stuff. But when you start having to do like payment processing and making sure that things don't go wrong when you're adding data to it, and there's a lot of places where things can go wrong. And credit to you, Josh, man. Like, I mean, to have two things that are going well, that's a really big accomplishment.
Well, DNWE is not going well anymore, but
Yeah, but that's not quite you anymore either. So
The other thing too, Todd, that I think is interesting is people don't want to admit this is that like if you really have that badass of a tool or something that's that innovative, that's really great and like I mean, you're not gonna it's not gonna be free more than likely, but especially in this space because our edges at some point, Tony Names talks about this all the time, find different angles. I mean, I share a lot of stuff that yeah, it costs me more in auctions, and Josh is probably shares a ton of stuff. I know Josh does, but that to me, it's an extent. I mean, at some point it's we talked about this before, but like how much information do you give away? But then also too, just because you tell people how to do it doesn't mean they're going to have the effort and energy and ability to do it as well. But to an extent, if you build a tool that makes it very easy and you're giving away all a lot of your angle, no one will really do that, right? So I'm always hesitant when I'm like, oh yeah, try this new tool, it's really great and amazing, and I'm like, I'll take a look at it, but I'm like, if it's that good and it's that cutting edge and it's that innovative, then what's the angle behind it? If there's not a paywall right now, then there will be one or something like that. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's a little bit of a kind of like a unpopular opinion, but that's just kind of how I feel in this space about some of that stuff.
Sure.
well, you can work off of commissions, right? And like affiliate links and stuff like that. But when I had Name Cult, I was making, it wasn't tons of money, but it was decent money from GoDaddy auctions. But it was work. It was fun. I was doing it. I was also going through the names already, so like the time factor was not as bad as it could have been. But yeah.
Okay, let me hijack this. I want to go to James, and then I had some questions why I wanted to talk with you and Renee Arif about this. Really, I want to talk about, I always think of just expenses, but no one wants to, Arif acts like, no, it's a rounding error, like it's hardly anything. No, it's not hardly anything. It's cost money to buy the names, even if it's $5 or $11. Then you have to renew it, and then you've had them for a couple years. You renew them a few times, but I mean, a few thousand names cost money, and then I'm going to get, with Renee, it is. He mentioned 7,500 of his names are .com. I remember when I'm listening to folks, all I'm thinking about is like a financial advisor. How can I want to limit expenses? I know guys who have such low expenses that they make more than guys making $250,000 a year because they keep their expenses real low, and the guy making $250,000 spends a bunch of money, does a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, this guy making 60 saving more than this guy fucking making $250,000, and even more. I mean, so I always think the expenses, but I want to talk specifically expenses that we run into. Basically building portfolios. Before I do that, James, what's going on? Nice to have you here. What's up?
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. And I wanted to say this is a perfect example of why people should come to this space, right? Because I try when I can, busy life, busy family, and all that stuff, right? But fantastic. But I wanted to speak because something Rene was saying. I've been sort of DMing with you, Rene, in the background, and nice to finally talk to you about the bulk update issue at Afternic, right? And I experienced that this week, but I hadn't joined the dots as to the consequences of what was happening, right? So I was you can all hear and laugh or celebrate or commiserate as appropriate, right? The output of that, because I was multitasking, whatever, at work and making a bunch of bulk updates, and it was really buggy, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, right? But anyway, off I go, make a bunch of updates, and sort of fighting the Afternic system as I was trying to make some updates. 'Cause I've been very public, right? Clearing out a bunch of names, $500, $1,000, whatever, and it's been pretty successful, clearing inventory. Anyway, so I was fighting that system, and guess what? So by accident, like an idiot, I managed to reprice all of I've only got 1,000 domains, right? Reprice all of my names for $100. Realized kind of almost immediately, like, holy crap, what happened? So rather than just manually try to do, because I have fast transfer enabled, right? It's like, no, I just delete everything. So I delete everything from Afternic and think, oh, that's fine, that's sorted. I'll, get around, reprice, do the spreadsheet, whatever. And ping, ping, I get a couple of pings through saying, congratulations, your name's sold by fast transfer. So it's a 2 letter and a number that was sold, and it was a CVCV that was sold as well. I know Josh had talked to you about that previously. But Renee, I hadn't twigged that as I was fighting the system, the Afternic system, and making the updates. That's what happened. And so the 3 character I've managed to get cancelled, but the CVCV's gone, right? And Afternic I got $100 for what was the name. I think I paid 4 or 5,000 for. I can't remember. Something like one of those two. So yeah, so it is really helpful just to have talked and kind of share in the community here the issue you were talking about around FT being enabled or not enabled. I think what you were saying on just pick a number, if it's 2K, 3K, depending on your portfolio, fine to have fast transfer. But lesson learned for me, anything more valuable, and I've got some, not compared to a lot of you guys, but I've got some half decent names, right? One word codes, 2-letter IOs, 2-letter .org, whatever. I ain't putting fast transfer on for that. So yeah, that's just sharing that, right, guys? Thank you for hosting these spaces. Thank you for sharing this information because it's super useful. I can go and cry into my milk now.
Hey, James. Yeah, I don't know if you're like we mentioned that like the first half hour of the show we were
Okay.
talking all that stuff. So definitely go back and listen to it because
Yeah, I will do.
we were ranting and raising about it for a while.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm on child duty over
No, no,
here,
no.
so
It's all good.
apologies.
Good to hear your
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks all.
Well, James, something good can still happen. And I will say, just that one CVCV, that's better than most all these people's portfolio. No one even has something that good. I know I wish I had a CVCV. I got some great 4-letter, but those are special, and those
Mm,
those are the best of the 4-letter. That's in my
yeah.
opinion. But James, that 3
Yeah.
character, and I get a lot of offers on my 3 characters more than any others. Now I've sold my like RR9, letter, number, and so on. What was the one that you did get back? Was it letter, number,
Oh, I'll
number?
tell you, there's no secret. Yeah, there's no secret. It was gn1.com, which is kind of nice. I like the letters and it ends in 1, so that kind of resonates pretty well. I've had a bunch of offers on, low offers on that. So I'd have been pretty disappointed. And just finishing the story, some of you may also be in this WhatsApp group. It's Dennis's WhatsApp group. One of the Chinese investors was sharing a story today. I don't want to get this wrong, but a few years ago, one of the big Chinese investors did that on a 2-letter.com and a 3-letter.com, and it went. They ended up getting it back, but they had to buy it back at a quotes discount, but still 5 figures they were paying to buy it back. Now I don't have any details on that secondhand, but that's another example of it happening at Afternic. They made a price update but missed some zeros off. Yeah, so
Yeah,
be
I've seen
careful.
instances like that. Somebody loses the name honestly, but then a
Mm,
broker gets involved. And then you're right, buying it back is like the primary option. Try to make sure
yeah.
that so the person who picked it up can make a little something off of it, sort of motivate them to sell it back. But
Mm,
I sure hope you get the CVCV. I know the jury's still out. Some good things can happen. Listen, crazy things happen. And if they
yeah,
could
yeah.
appeal to, that person that it's in their account to let them know, hey, listen, if it's a domain investor, that's like I was thinking, James, if I had picked up that name when we were talking about earlier, if I had picked it up and they said, hey, Todd, I would have been like, man, that's groove. I knew something was going to happen, but I'm a domain investor. I knew that's just way too low for that type of name. And if it happened to me, I certainly would want to be treated the
Yeah.
same way.
E-
So there,
Exactly.
something
It,
can
it,
be.
it's it's to, it's totally the way to do it, right? We all do this because what goes around comes around. He won't mind me saying this, right? A wholesaler bought something off Bruce in the past. He DM'd me a week or whatever it was later, said, "Hey, this actually sold. Can you give it to me back?" I said, "Of course, right? You just give the name back. It's just the way it goes because you will call in the favor, or people will help you out. It's a small community, so." Yeah, I've done that a number of times with people. So
Well,
yeah,
the good
and
news is your
a
milk's going
bunch
to
of
be two
people.
percent here shortly. Once you cry in it a little more, it sucks, James. You're gonna get out of this thing, but no, it's awesome to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, to
yeah.
hear. I was
Thanks.
gonna. I wanted to get to Arif and Renee here about these effing expenses. Because so I was doing some numbers and I'm thinking, okay, so Renee said, he spends he's got 7,500 names that are .com. So we know right there that's slightly more than 75,000 a year in renewals. And we know, he hadn't had those for a long time. Basically was building up to that. And I'm just setting this up. But then 2,500 names that aren't .com, well, that's all over the place. We know that can be expensive. And Renee, I heard what you said, very limited number of AI names, but still, it's just a lot. And I dropped some .io because I'm like, I just don't want to do it, even though I think they were almost worth renewing, but you just don't, if I wait this year, then next year and the following year, we know with domain investing, you wait years before things sell, these renewals add up. So that said, now getting to Arif, it's never any expense. You never have any. It's like all you'd sell, no expense, and congratulations on another 5-figure. I mean, you fucking.
No,
I've never quit. Hold on, let
but
me fucking go a little
okay,
bit because I'm
okay.
gonna throw it to you guys, and you guys will probably go till we're going to the top of the hour. But the point was, when you do pick up on these closeouts, you do have to add in a renewal. And even $5, $11, and I know you act like they're all that price, but you did pick up some for $20. You did pick up some for 50, just a few. But when someone buys, if you went from, I was using the figure 3,000 because I know Renee's added a lot more than that. You said you were at 3,000 to go another 2, but anyway, 3,000 names. If you're getting them at an average of $10, which no one does. Okay, so you're all at $20. That's already 60,000 plus 3,000 plus the $10 to renew them. If these were all .com, already 90,000. But my point is that's if they were all purchased at one time. If they were, I guess my point is if you bought 1,000 and then you went up 1,000 the next year and 1,000 the next year, those first 1,000 have already had now 3 renewals, or the first renewal and then 2 since then. It's just the expenses everyone just glosses over. It's not rounding errors. These things are big, especially.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
You're totally right, except for at that point, I consider everything at a portfolio level. Like I tell you, when I tell you I double my expenses every year, like obviously the new purchases I don't put in there. New purchases is new money that I choose to put in
Right,
there
so that's
that will
separate.
count
So
for
you're
next year.
doubling your money
So,
off of your portfolio and renewal, but still that extra expense
but
over
when I
there
say
could
doubling
be
my money,
30 or 40 grand,
that
and
means
you're not counting that each
yeah.
year.
No, well, I am counting it because when I say double, it means like I'm making twice as that much. So half of my revenue goes to pay my renewals, and the other half goes to either my pocket, paying old debts because I had some, or buying more domains. Right? That's what it comes down to. And then as I grow
You
my
just said you
portfolio,
don't count the money that you bought names for. That's growing your portfolio. But my
that will
point
go.
is,
Well,
so
that will
say
go
you
into the
sold
next year.
60,000 and you only had 30,000 in renewals. You don't have to tell me, okay, so you've doubled what your renewal cost is, but if you put that money back into it, you're really okay. So you've grown your portfolio. That's why I said to you the other day, the jury's still out. That's like Renee building his portfolio. It's really the jury's out. How successful is this going to be in 2 or 3 years down the road? I mean, especially for the ones who have grown from 1,000, 2,000, and increased their portfolio, because you're sinking the money back into it, assuming there's going to be similar or even better sales, going forward. So, but anyway, okay. So the expense, I know you understand what I'm saying there, and you've been, you're basically the money you're putting back into new names is money that you've made from sales, but still, it's still, reinvesting in the business. Reminds me of what Josh was saying about, not taking a salary. It's a separate topic I'll bring up later. But Renee, so this has been pretty big. You've been domaining now 3 years. Is that right?
Seriously, for 3 years, yeah.
And
And full time like 5-6 months ago, yeah.
and from say January 2025, so a year and 4 months ago, how many names would you say you had at the beginning of 2025?
Uh, Probably like 3,000, maybe something like that.
Okay.
I don't think anything more than that.
Okay, because
Basically, I had 200 names 3 years ago. Just think of it that way.
geez, I mean,
So,
so then I mean, thanks, but I was saying to go to 300 names, and now let's say you're at 10,300. It doesn't matter. 10,000 names. We know 3 years ago. I'm just telling, but and Renee said these aren't all .com, but let's go cheap. And Renee,
well, I started with $1,000. That's all I've ever started with. So that's
And
there
you've
you go. That's
always
all you have
sunk
to.
the money back into it from that. You haven't used any of that money you're making in the
Correct.
financial business.
It's always been from the sales. Yeah, but I had another job recently that was steady for like the last couple of years. That was, but this year it's shifted where my main job slowed down, so I'm doing domains full time. But at the end of the day, you're right. You're sinking the money back into it. And I was talking with someone the other day that has a lot of names, multiples more than me. And as long as you can learn and grow and get better and add more names at the speed I'm adding in that, yes, it is a risk, but I'm willing to use data and get better and talk to people who are better than myself every single day. And like I hunger to find more information the best I can that'll help me get better. But if you can keep the sales velocity similar and as you scale, that's I think the real kind of proofs in the pudding, right? If you start scaling to a bunch of names and your sales really slow down, or you're not being, and again, I hate to use the word consistency because domain is nothing, it's far from consistent, but when you can see similar, I think of consistency more of like similar naming convention selling, or that's what I think of as consistency, not the actual, in terms of like how many sales I get every single day or something like that. It's more of like, okay, I'm seeing patterns that are more consistent and I'm having sales with 4 or 5 of the similar exact naming convention, just let's say they're 2 words, one word's changed, and then some, okay, keep mining that out and mining that and mining that. When you build names with that fundamental basis where they're strong 2-word names and you're just swapping out a prefix or a suffix that makes sense, then you're not taking out the guesswork, but you have a little bit of proof of concept and you see other sales that are similar. So it's just finding that angle and scaling it as fast as you can. I mean, I bought 1,000 names last week that were hand registrations, 3word.coms, right? But I've sold 6 of them so far this year for like almost 30 grand of the same naming convention. So, and those 1,000 names cost me 8 grand at Unstoppable. And I've already, so again, so when you talk about adding names, the quantity is one thing to get hung up on. And yes, there are
Wait,
renewals
wait,
with
wait,
them.
wait. Just to be clear,
Yeah.
last week you registered 1,000 names and you've already what?
No, I said within this year, I sold 6 of them that were 3word.coms. I added 1,000 more of the same convention.
Got it, got it. But you haven't sold any of them.
No, no, no. I just got them
Yeah.
last week. No, no, no. But they were basically ones where I had a couple hundred, and then I sold a bunch this year. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just take the time to sit down, run them through bulk search tools, get all my lists in, and stuff like that. And then I just bought them
Yeah.
all. So that's basically what you did, but for a different angle than because I went through and I've saw a lot of years, and you have about 95% of the ones that I was going for. So that's kudos to you, and you put a lot of work into it. But anyway, the point is that like, so when you start talking about like in quantity of names, yes, there's a lot of names, but a lot of them are similar patterns and have similar sales. So when you talk about expenses, I mean, like you just got to sell a couple of those, a handful of those every year, and you're basically at least breaking even on that batch, if not more. And then it's just basically playing the numbers game to scale up that quality. That's how I think about it. I could be wrong, but that's where I'm at now, and that's how you start to get these larger numbers. Um, and that's kind of my thought process. And like if I look at my Q1, I had like I think almost 50,000 a bin, and I had 75,000 at least to own that were just accumulated just in Q1. That's 125K, right? And I already have 7,000 a month coming in from lease to owns throughout the end of the year on top of that. So like all my .com renewals are paid for by my lease to owns that were already going throughout the rest of this year, on top of and I added another 15,000 lease zones this month alone. So I mean, that's kind of where I've taken the burden off of the having to stress about renewals, because I have these lease zones that are just cranking. Yeah, they might cancel, but that's okay. But lease owns been a game changer. That's the one main decision that I was able to jump in full time and say, you know what, just go for it. Because in the back of my mind, if I can keep increasing those lease to owns, and by the way, I've been doing it at 13 months, so I'm getting even the added bonus there, and just keep cranking them out. So.
Geez, let me bring up some numbers, and Josh, you'll love this because I don't know, you love numbers. Hey, so what I did, and this is not Renee's situation, but this is growing to a 10,000 domain portfolio. And what I mean is, let's assume Renee's been doing it 3 years, but let's assume that he was only buying .com. The first year he acquired 3,000 names. The second year he acquired 3,000 names, and then the third year he acquired 4,000 names. So I'm just breaking down. So how he got to 10,000, year 1, 3,000, year 2, 3,000, year 4, 3,000, or 4,000. And then, what I did is I worked it where it was an average cost of $30 per name. So Renee bought a lot of hand register names, he said, recently. So that's brings the average down. I know he's purchased some names and some aren't even .com. But for this example, I had the average price was $30 per name. The renewal is $10. So just to give you an idea, year one, 3,000 names at $30 is 90,000. And since it's 3 years ago when he purchased those, there would be renewals in year two, renewals in year three. So that's another 60 grand. So that first year, those names, those first 3,000 at this point have cost 150,000. Year two, I won't go into it, but the cost was 120,000. Year three with the 4,000 names, the cost was also 120,000 because there hasn't been any. Matter of fact, these numbers are low because buying
I mean,
those
I'll just
four.
give you the numbers if you want. I mean, I have them all. I have them all here. I mean, I'll just make it more simple for you. I mean, I have
Okay.
my cost for last year, whatever new, what I spent. I mean, it's very simple, and you're on the right track. So my cost basis last year was around $14, so it's half of what you said.
Okay.
And I spent last year. I spent 105,000 on names roughly, and I had sales of like 180. But again, I wasn't doing this almost all last year. I was not doing this full time. It was like the last quarter basically. And the year before, I think I had 135 of sales against I think 75,000 of expenses. And this expenses is blended with purchases and renewals, right? Because you can deduct those off the top of your P&L every single year. So, but again, I ran it basically where all my P&L and all my income for domains was because I had another job going, where it was all basically kind of just I wanted to have as little income as possible, put everything back into it, not pay myself anything, and just grow the book of business and grow my portfolio. Um, so yeah, that's and then also I took advantage of Unstoppable's promo transfer. That saved me $10,000 this year. So just stuff like that. I mean, I try to transfer when I can. But again, when you're saying all these costs, right? Yes, they're there, but when you have lease to owns going, you have consistent sales, you're averaging 20, 30, about 30,000 a month in sales on top of your lease to owns. I mean, it's just the cost of doing business. And what I think is more important to focus on is when you get to a certain point, and I'm still learning, but it's the what is coming in, what's your portfolio makeup look like? And right now I'm taking about 20% of all my sales and I'm adding, names that cost like 1 to 2K, which is expensive for me, right? I only have about 25 of those names that I spent over $1,000 on. So I'm very selective and I'm trying to get better. And I actually run by a bunch of these with Josh sometimes. Hey, what do you think about this name? And he's very grateful at this time. And I've made some pretty good buys for 2 or 3K a clip, and haven't sold them yet. But I turned on a few offers on some of them for like 10, 15K on them. But that's just where I'm at. So yes, there's cost, and Todd, you are right. And yes, but if you build it, have the ability to build it at the beginning and just put everything back into it, you start scaling it up and scaling it up and just, being steady and adding more names. And I'm only getting more better, I think, in name selection as I go along, then it makes things more simple and you can streamline it even quicker. Because the growing pains you go through and you're learning, I mean, it takes years and years and years and years. I'm still learning every day. But
Well,
so yeah, that's just kind of my opinion.
Renee, I just want to say thanks to you and Arif. One, I wasn't, trying, I know, of course, I like privately, that's my job. I get down to the specifics with folks. Publicly, you guys have shared so much, and this is so interesting to me, but also valuable to domain investors to know. I was just trying to get to the point where, yeah, it's hundreds of thousands. Renee's put hundreds of thousands in. Fortunately, and I believe you, you started with 1,000. You've only put money back in that you've made, which is just what a successful strategy. Already successful. Now, of course, it's almost like you've done really well using this initial capital and working from that and building your portfolio. That's already a huge success. But all right, it's like things have went good. Now you're deep in the ocean. So, you got to get your ass, it's got to continue to go well. You're at a bigger risk than ever. But I wanted to show that, yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if it's coming from sales. And these lease to own, you're right. I heard you talking about it the other day. These are wonderful. Some of them will go away, but this is wonderful for you to make the renewals palatable. Let me ask you this. How do you handle your renewals? Do you do it monthly, quarterly? What do you do now that you're, above 5 figures in domain names? How do you handle your renewals?
Well, since I've kind of added these pretty chunkily the last couple of years, it was not as streamlined as it is now, it'd be like, hey, today's day 29. Let's go renew 30 names or go to my registrar. So that was how it was most of last year. And then when I had that big sale of onchain.one last year for 25K, I took almost all of that and renewed a whole bunch of names that took a lot of stress. So I renewed about like 3,000 names with that money, which took a lot of stress off of figuring out what to do. But going forward, I have a schedule of my renewals out 18 months from now. And starting next January, I think it'll be around 8,000 a month on average. But again, like I said, I mean, I took that sale and it took a lot of stress off me because I had a bunch coming up because I used all these special prices of Name Bright at $6, Unstoppable, Dynadot, right? So, and Josh really said something to me that stuck with me, and Art Malcolm was a big help to me as well. And he told me just keep renewing, and it's really the truth. I mean, I have such a young portfolio that it takes years and years. So I actually embrace time, and I can't wait for every day that kind of goes by where my portfolio just ages and ages, and because it'll help me, in theory. Um, and all these sales I'm seeing now are from names that are, some of them are, yes, within 60 days, which is fortunate. Some of them are 2 years, 2.5 years. Some of them are, a year. I saw one today, right? It was, I had it for 5K. They called in, they offered 2,500, and the broker, after Nick wanted me to push for more, and they could pay today at 2,500. And I said, at the end of the day, I got the name for GoDaddy for $1 closeout plus renewal last year, and last April actually. And it was in one of those batches that I actually renewed in November when I sold that name, because I renewed some of them earlier. So it's kind of ironic. It was full circle. Where I was like, I renewed that name. It wasn't due for 6 more months, but I believed in it, and then it ended up selling. Ironically, about a year from when I got it. I told the broker, I said, if this is a different name or a better quality name, but I can buy so many more names with this money than just waiting to try to get 3, 4K when it's priced at 5. And that to me is the next evolution. Is that average sell through price by sell through rate, basically. So at what price point can you, like, what's the maximum, like, if you look at the convexity of, like, at what price point can you really push the pedal and still keep your sell through rate for that bucket of criteria quality names the same? And that's not an exact science. I talked to many people that are more experienced than me, and that's kind of one of the holy grails, is that when you figure out what that number is, it makes your decisions a lot more easier, because you'll say, hey, I have the data to back it. And I say, hey, at 29.95 or 34.95 or 39.50, I can achieve this sell-through rate with this bucket of names. And once you can find that or have a good handle on your portfolio, it makes things way easier. I'm in like price discovery, where I have a lot of names at 10K that I moved some of them down to 5K, and I've sold 2 or 3 in the last month. Now, could I have got 10K? Maybe. I had some at 5K, I went down to 3K, sold them. So it's kind of that. And I have a couple where I was at 3K, and Josh told me at ICA, for that bucket of names, they'll pay 4 or 5. And I sold a couple of them at 5K this month. So, like, and I had them at 3 earlier. So it's not an exact science, but when you can kind of, and that's what people, Ish asked me, when you have a large portfolio, is it stressful or is it harder? I think it's actually gives me more flexibility, but you can also go down some rabbit holes and be, kind of overanalyze things as well. But I can test and split test stuff and try different things and say, okay, I'll run a test for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days with this, and then against this and these price points. And, there are people watching, end users, investors, and, that will scoop them up when you make changes, to an extent. So, this is a long-winded answer, and I don't take up any more people's time here. And
Yeah.
this is kind of my
Well, Renee,
experience, and
but
I'm
very hold
all
on.
Well,
I
set.
gotta
I'll jump in.
hold on,
I
Eric. I
was going
want
to
to
jump
say
in
to
on the same.
Renee
Oh,
something real
okay.
fast, and that is, Renee, I remember when I first saw you at the NamesCon a few years ago. I thought he was like a stalker. He wasn't saying much because he was just brand new. And then at ICA, I really enjoyed talking with you this last time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can say firsthand, you're definitely smarter than you look. You're doing. I just wanted to say that to Renee. No, Renee,
Hey,
it's
I've lost
fucking.
10 pounds, man. Come on, that's gotta help a little bit.
Fucking no, you're looking good. No, it was a pleasure being around you. Pleasure hearing, basically your growth in this. I'm going to let Arif go, but Josh, get ready for this question, and that is, what cautions have you given Renee, and what cautions do you give people that are growing fast portfolios like this? So think about that. First, we'll go to Arif, and then you can answer that in like 10 minutes when he's done.
Yeah, well, I was going to say what basically what Renee said was basically, you know, even like 5,000 names, especially I was at 3,000 for quite some time. I mean, some people think, oh, it's a lot of domains, but the fact is, as Renee was just saying, it's still not enough to really get a grasp of, okay, beta testing, or not beta testing, like A/B testing, and saying, oh, is this or that? It's like, no, sometimes it's just dumb luck, right? And that's the thing, is that after a while, when you get volume, it's still luck, but when you have luck at volume, it becomes statistics, right? And that's where things kind of smooth out. Like I'm sure, especially now he's at 10,000 names now. It's kind of recent at 10,000 names, but like in the next year or two, he's going to find that that revenue becomes more and more stable. For me, month to month, extremely unstable. I have months where I sell not well. Lately, I haven't had any 0 months, but during in the last couple of years, I've had months with 0 sales. Then I have months where I make like half of my renewals the entire year, right? And it's just, but that's what happens at that size of portfolio. If you have a huge domains, then you're going to have consistency month to month. But it's really, there's a lot of luck in this thing. But if you play your cards right for enough hands, you'll have consistency, and that's really where you're learning what to do, how to price things optimally. It's really important to know who your audience is for each of your domains, right? If it's something in finance, whatever it is, well, then you can afford to buy a domain with a lower sell-through rate, because the multiple you'll sell the domain at will be higher, right? Those things balance out. You have both those things combined. So all those things come together. You were saying about cautioning before. One thing I would say is, I'm not talking about Renee here, because I'm very confident in his selection. But for the average person out there who wants to scale up fast, the only thing I would say is be careful, because if you want to go faster, you buy more domains, and the more domains you buy, the lower your quality control, right? Like for somebody like me, again, it depends on how you're buying stuff and how you're applying it and how you're looking at the data. But like for me in closeouts, if I'm at a point in time where I'm buying like 5 closeouts a day, right? Okay, it's great. But if I want to go to 10 closeouts a day, I have to realize that, okay, well, it's not just I'm doubling my portfolio. It's that 1 to 5 is the first 5 domains I wanted to get that day. 6 to 10, well, those are automatically lower quality, because like I didn't, there would be the next ones. So you got to be careful. If you buy too much too quickly, make sure you do not let up on your quality control, right? You can get to a certain amount. Like for me, I think I could probably buy 10, 15 closeouts a day without really affecting too drastically the quality control. But beyond that point, yeah. But it's also because, when I say 10 to 15, it's because I go through a ton of domains. When I'm like right now, I'm not buying, but when I'm on a buying spree, like, I spend hours a night looking at like tons and tons and tons of names, right? Like thousands, like 5,000, 6,000 names. Back when I was doing name calls, it was like 7,000, 8,000 domains every single night. And I would end up with 5 to 10 closeouts, right? And maybe one at auction every now and then. But you just got to make sure you be careful of your quality control.
Eric, one thing I'll say real quick about your closeouts is I don't buy any name of closeouts anymore, but maybe with your time constriction and how you have with your work, but just back napkin math, if you're paying $5 plus the renewal and you can win most of these names for $1, obviously, because it's implied that if they got to $5, they were at $1 and no one bid on them and it went down the tier. Every 2 names you buy, you're losing out on 1 more name. And for you, it doesn't make a difference because you're only buying 10, 15 a day. But if you're buying like 50 names a day, like I'm buying sometimes, that to me is significant, right? I'm basically doubling the name count that I have just by not letting it go to closeouts all the way down to $5. But again, if not a big difference, but when you look at the math at that scale, when you start adding names, that to me, you're basically would get an extra name for every 2 you buy. Just food for
But
thought.
you're
That's
talking
all.
about the $1 ones, you mean?
Yeah, if you're spending 5 at closeouts plus renewal, right? So every 2 you buy is $10
Yeah.
extra. If you buy them for $1, right? That's what I'm saying. You would get another name.
Well, the thing is that like I did some testing, not enough testing, but preliminary testing. I tried the $1 ones, the ones I would have waited for like $5 and $11, and every time I made a bid, well, not every time, but like over 95% of the time, if I made a bid, someone else will bid. Now again, that's one of those things where you don't know for sure, because maybe that other one just was the one, right? And so you don't know for sure. Maybe people would have made bids on the other ones anyways. But like typically, it's also back in the days, like auctions started at was it $12 back in the day. Like that's just before your time as as an investor. But like years ago, auctions used to start at $12, and then they went to $25 for a while, and then now they went to $1. Like I think it looks like they're staying there, right? So it was basically $12 was the opening bid for the bulk of my portfolio,
Yeah,
right? And
I was
so
just
yeah,
saying food for thought. That's all I'm just saying. Like when you start just
I get it.
yeah.
I get it. It's just that like for me, most of the time, the same quality stuff, I would get like $11 closeouts. If I bid $1, it would go into the hundreds. Usually, there are exceptions, right? And but that's usually the way I found it would work. But again, it's often like it could depend on what week it is. Like if you're like nobody listen, but I mean if you're going to the auction platforms during a holiday week, right, when everybody's on holidays, well, you get more bargains sometimes, right? Like the best time to go friggin' GoDaddy auctions is like between Christmas and New Year's, right? And so, but there's also times like when I was buying stuff where there are also you could tell there are ways where some people are buying, some people are not. Like I remember when I was 2 years ago, at a point in time, I was just like it was like so easy pickings for super cheap because that was when huge domains had like were boycotting GoDaddy for a while, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like it was night and day. I was getting fantastic stuff and like stuff falling through the cracks. And I look at it the other way. For me, it's like I don't need to win every domain that I want, right? For me, if like there's like 15 domains in a day that I want, well, okay, yeah, half of them will go to auction and go up, and like forget about those because it's at a price point that I don't need to buy. But then there'll be like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 domains that fall through the cracks, and eventually I grab for $5 or $11, and that's all I need, right? Like I'm building my portfolio. For me, but the most important thing for me, keep in mind, is that they're equal quality, right? And by equal quality, I mean when you multiply the theoretical sell-through rate with the theoretical sales multiple equals, basically doubling your money every year, right? And so that's how I look at it. And like again, like I was really good in the past at not chasing things. Last year, I chased a few things, but it kind of paid off. Like one of my 10K sale, or what was it, 15 one? I forget which one it was, but one of those two sales. Was one of these domains that I bought for like I don't know, $300 or something like that, right? Whereas in the past, I didn't buy anything at auction. I had like almost nothing in the 3 figures. I had a few, but like
Yeah, we're very, on the very, same page. I don't want to get carried away with this, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
all else being
I get it.
equal,
I
right?
get it.
For every two names you get, I get three, basically. So that's what I'm saying. So, like, when I'm scaling to be at 20,000, hopefully by the end of middle of next year, right? That to me that's huge, right? I'm getting another name, for the same dollar spent, and that's another thing too that people I think don't understand is that it's the your average price of acquisition. Yes, there's renewals, but like that's a quick cheat mode, right? Like go to closeouts, which is fine. But for me, I don't get all the names I bid on either. But at least I'm increasing the odds of names I can accumulate at
Do
the
you
same dollar spent.
do you get enough of the ones at $1 to justify that? Because that would be my fear. Is that I get your math, but for me, it's the quality controls that you would lose so much opportunity that it kind of is almost counterproductive. Like you get
Oh,
three
yeah,
for every
Josh
two
can
that I
speak
get.
to this because he did it a while ago. I think I remember him talking about it a while back. But like, there's opportunity, so much opportunity to go to. It's incredible. I mean, like, if I didn't have to go anywhere else, I don't have to. But like the higher end names, you have to hunt them and privately and negotiate. But like right now, I bid on like 100 names a day, and huge domains win 60, right? And then the other 40, So out of the last 100 names I bought just within the last week and a half, right? I think 80 of them were at $1, and the other 20 of them were anywhere from $11 up to 250 a clip. So the
Wow. Okay,
blended the blended rate, yeah. So
that's amazing. So I would have thought that if you bid at 100 of domains at $1, like 90 of them would have gone up into the dozens or hundreds of dollars at auction, right? And then the final
Yeah,
10,
no
you'd be
way.
fighting over at closeout.
Hey, Josh,
No
But
way.
speaking
I
of,
haven't bought anything since September. Sorry, what was that?
No way, man. I'd experimented with this last year, and I would say more often than not, I was winning domains for $1 than not than them
Wow.
getting bid up.
Josh, you said things that were drying up in the auctions recently. Are you feeling that way? I mean, is there still less opportunity
I
this
just
year?
I think there's a lack of quality inventory right now. I've had the same feedback from some other top investors. Um, these things come in ebbs and flows. So later on in the year there might be a bunch of high quality names that come up for auction, but definitely feel that the quality is diminishing, which makes sense, right? If you think about it logically, people are understanding domain names more. They're understanding that domains have value. They're less likely to, let them expire. There are more people in the investment community hunting domain names. So when that happens, obviously these people receive emails with offers, and yeah, they're just less likely to. Good names are less likely to expire. So year over year, I would expect quality to go down. But I do feel like we're seeing it a little bit more this year. And then when half decent names do come to auction, they get more competitive, and we're seeing that too. Which is why for the last 2 years, I buy most of my domains from the aftermarket, or hand register them. Like very, very rarely do I bid in auctions. I would say, if I'm being honest, I don't enjoy bidding and getting my names at network solutions, but in terms of inventory quality, I would say Namejet and Snap Names is best bang for your buck if you're bidding in auctions.
I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, I'm glad you bring it up. But so buying really just on the aftermarket or hand registering, but not buying at auction. I can now I understand that. I was
Oh, it's a very, very unpopular opinion, by the way. Very unpopular opinion, but
I mean, I've heard a lot of the guys you talk with, because you talk with these top investors, they didn't even go over and look at hand registration names, right? I mean, most of them just consider.
most of the guys that I'm talking with on a daily basis do not hand register domain names. Maybe hand register like alt TLD stuff, but not .coms like I do. Really, what I was doing was had become pretty uncommon, I would say. And I'm not gonna say that I kind of started a renaissance of the mass hand registration in .com again, but I would say that more
I
people are
think you have.
interested in. I think more people are interested in doing it again now. Yeah.
I think if they
Yeah,
listen,
and also not just that. I think you've also, with DNX, I mean, it's always happened before, I think, but now it's a little bit more visible, where domainers are more and more buying domains in the four figures, right, and looking to buy them at five figures. But like you're there's probably buying domains off of me, like I priced a few years ago at like a 3K, and you're going, oh well, no, that domain should be like 20K, and so you buy it. I have it at Afternic, and you go and you
Well,
buy it.
people who use, particularly in this case, we'll talk about DNX. Why not? But like people that use DNX consistently, they almost always end up buying names through us because if you look one day, you might not see anything you like. If you make one or two offers, you may not get success. But if you're checking most days, you'll soon find out that you're gonna be able to identify value, and you will 100% guaranteed get deals that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. It's it's not I'm not even it's not even a 99% chance. It's a if you're consistently looking in the aftermarket, you will find deals that you wouldn't have been able to get otherwise.
Yeah, I get it. And for me, the reason why I don't venture down that rabbit hole is specifically because you need to have enough volume to kind of equal things out, right? Like if you get like 5 or 10 domains that you're spending four figures for,
Yeah, but it's
well,
not just four figures. It's not just four figures, man. Ask Rene. He's bought loads of domains through DNX, and he's not spending four figures on them all the time.
oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying from when you're looking to scale up, right? For me, like I'm like in the trenches, right? And it's like I'm only doubling my things, my investment or my cost every single year, right? Which compared to someone like yourself who's doing it full time, but and also being really smart at the research, like you're more than doubling your costs per year for sure. Forget like the new stuff you're buying super high, but your costs for the year that you're bringing in at the beginning of the year, your renewals and all that stuff, like you're way more than doubling. Like I don't want to give a number because I don't want to say it, but like percentage wise, you're doing on a different category than I'm doing. For me, though, doubling my money every year, something on the side, and it's consistent, it's there. My fear for myself is I do want to upgrade. I do want to get into that category of, those the categories where you're talking about in domain Sherpa, those types of quality of domains. It's just that I know that I don't want to just invest in like 3 or 4 of them, because there could be 3 or 4 good ones, but you need it enough to have, again, I said like that, where it becomes statistics as opposed to just that luck, because you can have the best domains in the world, but you only have a handful. It's still a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
but
saying.
fair. See, that's the fallacy, right? Is that I used to think that way as well. And and I'm just saying this like too hardly because you're good, But I used to be like that too. Oh, if I don't have a bunch of them, then it's not gonna. But like, I'm adding them when I can. Like, Josh has seen some of the ones I bought. Like, they're 2, 3K a clip, and when I add them, I can. But like, I don't find them all the time. But like, to get to have a quality of those names to build them up, you have to start. Unless you have a lot of money coming in, right? You have to just work your way up and to get those names, and they'll start snowballing. Next thing you know, you have 10, and then 20, and then 30, and then more and more. And then they'll sell a couple of them, and you can get more and more that way. That's my opinion. But I was the same thing as you. I was hesitant, and I said, Braden always tells me this. He goes, take some of that money that you get from your sales and buy better names that are more expensive, and then you can sell them for whatever. And I used to fight it forever, but I finally bought into it. That
So
mentality.
you're not wrong. Like I'm gonna say, last year, like again, there's certain percentage of my acquisitions were a notch up, and it's slow, right? It's like I don't consider myself there yet because the volume of such domains, I just don't have enough, right? But again, I sold again last year. I probably wouldn't have bought some of the ones I bought at 3 figures, but look, at least one of them sold for 10K or 15K, and another one sold for a higher amount too. Like I'm already profitable in those very few domains that I bought, but it's just I don't have enough volume to really consider myself like in that area. But you're right. Like I mean, I think everybody would advice to everyone would be like, okay, start at a certain level, and then as you make your sales, as you're more consistent, as you're more, reassured with your quality control and your selection, right? Because that's really important. That's the one reason why people should not scale quickly, is because you already, you have to prove what your original selections were, right? Because if you start and you're not making any sales, like the super majority of people start in this industry, well, then you got to take a pause and go, well, what's wrong? Why am I not making any money? Because what it comes down to at the end of the day is really, it's all about profit, right? Whatever your level is, it's all about profit. And then obviously you want to scale. Like for you, I have a lot of respect for what you've done the last few years, because like it's very few people can scale at that level that you and Josh have in the last couple of years. When I say very few, like I mean I think of people who talk about it publicly. You might be the only 2 people I know who've really gotten thousands of new domains per year and been able to maintain a quality control and proven the quality control with actual sales, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to have profit, right? You can't just go, oh, I bought all these domains, but like, yeah, but if you're not selling them and you're not being profitable, well, then it changes everything, right? You have to be profitable. It has to be consistent,
Believe it, they
and you
both have a
can't.
lot of junk. I'm going to speak on it. They have a lot of junk. Hey,
All right.
in between Josh, counting all of his Chris money, Arif acts like he's looked into your Amazon history, and Josh is buying money counters. He's like, okay, hey, Josh, when I wanted to ask you, so like Renee, he speaks with you, and he's like, yeah, he's going to 20,000 names. Now that you know his level of experience, and you do still give him some advice, and probably I'm sure it's a lot of advice that you try to take yourself, but what cautions do you give? Hey, bud, you're my brother here. You're going to 20,000 names. What advice do you give when you're trying to say not put on the brakes, but be careful?
Yeah, Rene is a very smart guy, man. I don't really give him too much in terms of put on the brakes or don't do this or don't do that. If he asks for my advice on a particular subject, I try to give it. Advice on a name, I would say that he at the low end, he's just as good as me. Um, uh, and if he has questions about the higher end names, I typically happy to give feedback on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, when you're scaling up, obviously you have to understand that you'll probably if I mean it's going to be hard to sell your entire portfolio. So you want to you have to kind of in the back of your mind understand the possibility that you might be you know dying with a lot of domain names, so to speak. But in the meantime, the bet is that you're gonna get a huge ROI, uh, even with that. Especially, I mean, a lot of guys with 100,000 name portfolios, they stopped buying years ago, and now every year it's just churning pure profit, not investing anything back. And if they got zero for their domains for the rest of time, they would have still made a pretty penny. But we don't know what the future holds, so it's never great to put all your eggs in one basket. Renee knows that. It's just general, just got to be generally responsible. Take risks, but nothing too crazy, and follow the data. Yeah, that's about it, really.
Hey,
Hey Josh, can I just say one thing real quick? And it's just really important. I noticed this recently, and it's I don't let it bother me, but I kind of find it funny sometimes when you sell a name, right? You post it on social media, and then not only does somebody post their own names in a comment, which is whatever, but then they think that their name, because it has a similar keyword, is like it has to be worth that, or it's like good value, and like that to me is like the biggest sign that someone does not understand. Like, yes, it might have one of the two, if it's three where it had the similar same word, but there's such a disparity between what the other word is, right? And that to me is one of the things I see a lot of people who are buying names are like, oh, well, this person sold that name when I had the same keyword. Why is mine not selling, right? Now, forget the claw ones, but you're not talking about Josh, right? Where some people get so caught up
Yeah,
on, oh yeah, this keyword that it matters, but it's also the other word as well, because sometimes they don't have good synergies and they're not the exact same.
yeah, most domains
100%.
most
I
domains
mean,
suck.
one of like things that I've considered in the past is there's guys like DadDomains that offers a service of um you pay him a certain amount and he'll register names for you. And I could coach him through the criterias that I want in order for him to register the domains, and I don't know, pay him $1 per name or whatever, on top of whatever the registration cost is. But the problem is that um it's like you say, Renee, there's a difference between what's good and what's not good, that 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 people don't seem to fully understand, no matter how many times you explain it to them, which is just, it's not something that I've quite figured out why yet, but it certainly is the case.
Some people are made for being dominion investors, and many people are not. And it's a combination of, I think, mostly life experience and some education, whatever it is, and language. And there's many factors why people are good versus could never be good in domain investing. And I hate to say it like that, right? It's just that there's a you have experience in marketing, if you have good language skills, if you have certain experience in certain industries, if you've been customer service facing and dealt with people your entire life, like all these things add up, and that's what makes us all a little bit different. And it's a very difficult business to be profitable in, but it's also those different experiences is why all of us can be in this industry and succeed in such different ways, right? Like, I mean, like Josh, the way you do your domaining and the way I do domaining
Hold
are
on
at
there.
this point
We've
quite
heard you
different.
say this. We know your experience. You're worldly in different way. Okay, I got one last question for Josh. I got to
No,
close this room, but Darcy said the same thing. TBH. Most people should pass on domain investing. I liked when he put that. To be honest, he trying to be honest with people on fucking X. But yeah, most people should pass on it. We understand that. So the final question for today, we got to get out of here. I got stuff to do. Is so Josh, about the you said okay, on the low end, Renee's is saying, I'm interested. So on the high end, what is the one most important data point if someone's going to spend definitely, high four figures, but in the five, even six figures on a name, you're like, listen, I'm going to buy a great name because, I believe that's where the better part of the market is to invest in the high end diamonds. But what is the most important data point that you look at when you're going to spend, 50 grand or more?
Exact match usage that already exists, without a doubt, 100%.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I hate to say, bringing up the domain name law room, right? When you see so many companies use Oracle or and I know now they're thinking Oracle, but Galaxy or Orion, and you already know there's so many companies that are using that name with capital or with whatever. It's they're two words, and there's dozens of companies that only make sense, but still, I look at that as that's what I'm getting when I get ready to get on this next call. That's what brand lawyers consider. Oh, so you're targeting the whole group? Well, yeah, we're trying to find names that are used by a the widest diverse groups of businesses, basically, that can be used in all areas of business, and then even in future, if there's not crypto company named a certain name. Anyway, I'm thanks for that data point. I mean, because some of us, think about, all right, really have never bought names for 5 figures, but no, there is something there, and sometimes you got to buy one before you have plenty. And Renee brought it up. You got to slowly make your way into that buying a 3 figure, 4 figure name, offering it for 5 or 6 figures. But basically, it takes money to play, get involved in some single word.coms or even 3 letter. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to be here. Next Thursday, I'm at the Dominion Conference. Probably can't do this, but we'll talk before then, Josh and I, about what we're going to do. But appreciate it. Boy, Arif, you and Renee really shared a lot today. Maybe next week you guys just come in here and just go for. You guys could go for 2 hours like fucking nothing. All right, but I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks to my
Thanks for room, guys.
co-host Josh. Josh, really appreciate your time. And then Darcy, thanks for doing it, man. I mean, I said, hey, I hope you can come up here. He's like, I'll fucking do it. But definitely Renee, Arif, both of you, all the stuff. I'm finally saying, for those who have listened to this type of conversation, Josh said there's more and more people that are, doing this. And if anybody, I know there's at least one person that after listening to this conversation is thinking, I'm going to look at these closeouts. I'm going to look at these $1 names that Renee's talking about, that Arif's talking about. If they can do it, I can do it. And it is. There's more and more folks on the investment end that are getting into this. It makes it, more difficult to find good names. But, I do believe that. I believe more and more people, from the investor to the end user, are becoming aware of names. So it's, just more difficult for us as domain investors, but good all the way around. All right, everybody, enjoy the day wherever you're at, the evening. But we'll see you this time next week. The DNX Show. Check us out always if you want to know what's going on at dnxshow.com. Until next week, take care.
Thanks.
Later, guys.